Ladies and gentlemen, Laurie Cardozo-Moore with Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. And first and foremost, I want to thank all of our PJTN Watchmen for answering our call. You all know a couple of weeks ago, we received a generous anonymous contribution, a matching grant of $25,000. And those of you who heard my plea answered the call, and I want to thank you so much for helping us. We still have a ways to go. We haven't raised all of that $25,000, but we are on our way thanks to you and thanks to your financial support. Another thing I want to just address, I know that many of you are feeling extremely overwhelmed and frustrated because we see this fraudulent activity going on in our whole election process, and we see elected leaders who are standing by and remaining silent and are not engaging in ensuring that our constitutional republic survived this. And this is extremely frustrating, I know, to many of you. And so I wanted to give you a word of encouragement and something that you should look to, because you know, we have been fighting this battle here at PJTN. We have been calling for education revision, for transparency in education, demanding that our textbooks and our instructional materials are to be historically accurate, unbiased, and reflect the values, the Judeo-Christian values of our country. And unfortunately, we have seen a lot of propaganda, a lot of indoctrination going on with our children. Information education that is not accurate. In fact, there is an effort to try to revise our history, and we see that going on. But last week I was looking for some of the polls to see what the numbers are. How did we fare? Because we launched a campaign back in August of this year focused on the election. Now, we are a nonprofit. We can't tell people who to vote for, but we can tell people to vote. And we can give people the information that they can make a wise decision when they do go to vote upon. But I was reading where George Barna, who did some polling after the elections, we were focused on getting the evangelical Christian vote out, because in 2016, the last presidential election, there were over 40 million Christians who stayed home, many of which were women. That was really disturbing to me because, you know, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And as mothers and as nurturers, and as we're raising and training up our children in the way that they should go, it's outrageous that we're watching women, Christian women, and even Christian men who are not engaged in this whole political process. But Barna came back with an unprecedented report where he said that there was 99% turnout by Christians. And what they call these Christians now, they don't use the term evangelical Christians, but now there's a new term for them. They're called spiritually active, governance engaged conservatives. And these are Christian voters who showed up 2020 to vote, 99%. Barna actually was only expecting 66% turnout of evangelical Christian votes. This is huge. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe it can be directly tied to organizations like PJTN. We focus specifically on reminding people biblically why we should vote, telling parents and citizens what is at stake, because what we do today is going to determine the future our children will have in this country, if there is one left. And so I want to encourage you that to me was a huge positive sign. We were right on message. We knew exactly that we had to reach this demographic. We had to make sure people got out and vote, and then we had to make sure that they had the information. The other thing I wanted to bring up also, you all may remember earlier this fall when school started back, Broward County, which we've spent a lot of time in Florida, Broward County, Florida, which is where I grew up, they saw a 3.5% drop in registrations this year. And I believe that it can be directly tied back to the fact that parents are pulling their children out of the public school system because we have been informing them, educating them about what is being taught to their children, how their children are being indoctrinated. And parents, instead of keeping their kids in a virtual classroom and teaching them the public education garbage, the disinformation in the textbooks and the curriculum, they decided to pull their kids home, take their kids home, put them in private schools, but give them the education they want for their children. And then last, I wanted to share with you this past week, I was reading in Nashville, Tennessee, which is Davidson County, they have 20,000 students who didn't show up, who aren't showing up into the public school system. And I do believe, again, once we start digging a little bit deeper, we're going to find that parents are keeping their kids home. They're educating their children at home because parents are fed up with being told that their children have to learn values that do not reflect their families, and that parents cannot go into their child's virtual classroom because they might hear something they shouldn't hear. Well, you've heard me weigh in on this. What is so private about public school education? If we're teaching our children how to read, how to write, how to add, how to subtract, what's so private about that? What do we have to keep parents out of our children's virtual classrooms for? So, ladies and gentlemen, there is good news, and there are more for us than are against us. So be encouraged. It depends on what we do. And that's why I reach out to you every week and ask for your prayers. I ask for your financial support. I ask for you, attend your school board meetings, pull your kids out of the school and homeschool them. Parents are starting to pay attention. They're listening to what we're saying, and they're taking action themselves. They're taking back local control of their children's education. They're taking back local control of our communities and our local government, because we, the people, need to make sure that people we put in place of authority over us are going to govern in a godly manner. And I want to just close real quick and just tell you, there's a great statement that George Washington made, and I think it's quite, I think it's a sobering message for us today as Americans, because we were also facing a daunting army, the British Army, when we were fighting to secure our freedoms as a country. And on July 2nd, 1776, at the Continental Congress, General George Washington had this to say. He said, "The time is now near at hand, which was probably determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves, whether they are to have any property they can call their own, whether their houses and farms are to be pillaged and destroyed, and they consigned to a state of wretchedness from which no human efforts will probably deliver them. The fate of unborn millions will now depend, under God, on the courage and conduct of this army. Our cruel and unrelenting enemy leaves us no choice but a brave resistance, or the most abject submission. This is all we can expect. We have therefore to resolve to conquer or die. Our own country's honor all call upon us for a vigorous and manly exertion. And if we now shamefully fail, we shall become infamous to the whole world. Let us therefore rely upon the goodness of the cause and the aid of the Supreme Being, in whose hands victory is, to animate and encourage us to great and noble actions. The eyes of all our countrymen are now upon us, and we shall have their blessings and praises, if happily we are the instruments of saving them from the tyranny mediated against them. Let us therefore animate and encourage each other and show the whole world that a free man contending for liberty on his own ground is superior to any slavish mercenary on earth. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. Keep up the fight. Our country is worth fighting for. We have to fight this battle on the local level, and that means you and I have to get engaged. God bless you and thank you for all you do on behalf of our Jewish brethren, the state of Israel, and these United States.